Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is live with, once again, another Ultimate Series guide for Fallout 76, and today I'm going to be looking at the heavy weapons specifically. So before we get started, if you guys want to head on over and join the Discord, it'd mean a lot to me. We got a growing community there, so if you're interested in that, feel free to join down below in the link, and I'll see you guys in there. So first things first, this is going to be not a VATS only build. I will have options for everybody who wants to use it, either in power armor, no power armor, full health, low health, VATS, no VATS, really anything you could think of. But getting the basics covered here, if you want to critical hit every other shot in VATS, these are the thresholds you'll need to hit with your luck. If you are using limit breakers, this is what you can expect. Now, if you want to use less limit breakers, or possibly none at all, you'll have to use the Lucky Hit 3-star legendary mod. This will give you plus 15% bonus VATS critical charge, and if you have this in combination with high luck, and you're using crit savvy, you should be able to crit every shot at 40 luck with no limit breakers, but if you put just one on, you can get that all the way down to 28, which is very achievable outside of things like unyielding armor. Now for the heavy legendary effects, what you'll be looking for is Bloodied or Fierce in the first star, Hitman's Explosive, Vital, or Rapid in the second star, Lucky Hit, Swift, VATS Optimized in the third, and Conductors, Pinpointers, or Vipers in the fourth. You could also put on Stabilizer in the fourth if you'd like that. Really just depends on what you're feeling. All these are very viable, so just pick the ones that suit your playstyle the best. Taking a look at your possible mod configurations for your armor. So in the first star you want to use Aristocrats, Lucid, Overeaters, or Unyielding. In the second star, Luck or Powered. In the third star, Active, Reflex, Sentinels, Weight Reduction. And in the fourth star, Limit Breaker or Rangers. Now again, these are just my personal recommendations. You can really use whatever you want to use. It's not really like make or break for the build, so most people want to run something like Weight Reduction, so if you want to do that, feel free to do that. Now for your power armor, there's really only two power armor sets that are like really truly end game, and that's going to be the Vulcan and the Strangler Heart. So for those, it's going to be kind of similar. Aristocrats, Lucid, Overeaters in the first, Luck, Powered in the second, Active, Reflex, Sentinels, Weight Reduction in the third, Aegis, Limit Breakers, Rangers, Reflective, Rejuvenators, or Scanners in the fourth. Now if you're using a VATS build, Vulcan is 100% the way to go, and if you're not, Strangler Heart will give you easy access to poison damage and being able to take advantage of that Viper's effect. So here is a list of all the damage boosting items you can use: Overdrive, Big Guns, Bobblehead, magazines. A list of mutations here, so you'll want to use Herd Mentality, Marsupial, Eagle Eyes, Bird Bones, Egghead, Speed Demon, Adrenal Reaction, and Herbivore, with the optional Scaly Skin. Now moving on to our first build of the video, it's going to be the human build. So I'm going to be covering the full health human first, and then moving on to the low health human afterwards. But each build in this video will have the one I mentioned beforehand, so for example the full health build, but I will be doing like the bare bones minimum version of it first, followed by the fully fledged out build, and this is just based on my recommendations, so again it's not 100% like copy it one for one. Change some things around that fit your playstyle more than they would fit mine. Not everybody's going to be using the same things, because sometimes, you know, people will use like traveling pharmacy to get their chem weight down as opposed to using a backpack mod or something like that. Anyway, get looking into the build. So this is what you're going to expect to use on like the bare minimum setup for a full health heavy gunner outside of power armor. Pretty standard build here. I have mine decked out for science because I'm going to be using energy weapons mostly on this build. But if you are not, then you can feel free to swap that out for something else if you'd like. The reason you see Center Masochist here is because since this is not a VATS focused build, you're not going to be hitting weak points very often, just because the free aiming in this game is not very accurate. So you'll be hitting the torso fairly often, and in the situations you are hitting the torso, you're going to get a big chunk of bonus damage just from doing that. Moving on to the fully fledged out version of my full health human. Again, this is just my personal recommendations. This is what your special stats will look like. Now here is the fully fledged out build. So some things I've added that maybe you want to talk about is I've added bandolier to strength. Now this is something you don't technically need. I mean, the ammo doesn't weigh too much for heavy guns, especially ballistic ammo. So if you don't want to use that, or you're not even using a ballistic based weapon, feel free to swap that out. Blockers here because most of the damage you're going to receive in big chunks is going to come from melee damage. So if you can mitigate that, why not? Besides that, most of this is really just built around the Furious Legendary effect, which is why you see a lot of those Gorilla cards there and the Gunslinger cards. But if you are not using Furious, feel free to swap those out for, you know, really anything you'd want. You could put on something like evasive cards like Dodgy or Evasive itself. And moving on to the Legendary perk cards here, I actually have an open slot, which is something I don't usually do on normal builds, but there's really not much else you can put in here, so feel free to put whatever you want in there. Now moving on to a VATS focused build for the full health heavy gunners. So this is what you can expect to run. Here's going to be your special loadout for the bare minimum setup. And the build is very similar to the one from before, except you have some more VATS focused perks here like awareness. You're going to be using better criticals and critical savvy, of course. Grim Reaper Sprint is just a very good perk to have on all your VATS builds. It'll just make sure that you're able to use VATS more consistently, as every time you get a kill, it'll refresh a large portion of your AP bar. Gung Fu, of course, this is not a perk that's, you know, 100% necessary, but I use it on all my VATS builds because it really adds a level of automation to them that I just cannot play without. Now moving on to the fully fledged out endgame version of my full health heavy gunner for VATS players. This is the special layout, and here is the full setup. So really what I did here is I threw on Downranger and Gorilla. The reason I did this is because one of these will be active at all times. Either the target's too far away for Gorilla to be procced, which will then activate Downranger, and vice versa. I have picked up Class Freak in the luck tree, but aside from that, it's pretty straightforward looking at our legendary perk cards. So for this build, I did have to end up using that extra slot, and this is because VATS focused builds are very demanding. So usually if you're using a VATS build, you need to cut corners somewhere. Now moving on to by far, I would say the least popular build in today's video is going to be the low health heavy gunner. Now I will be showcasing the perk setups for a low health heavy gunner outside of VATS and inside of VATS, just like I did for full health. Here is the special setup for the bare minimum recommendation for a low health heavy gunner outside of VATS. And these are going to be my recommended perk cards for that build. Again, Center Masochist is going to be on a lot of these builds you see outside of VATS, probably all of them, because if you're not hitting the weak point, you'll usually be hitting the torso, just Center Mass. So it's a good idea to get as much damage as possible on all the shots that you're missing that are not actually hitting the weak point, since you're not using VATS. Nerd Rage, you want to throw this on there because you are a low health build. I mean, it's kind of obvious why you want that on there. And aside from that, you're really just adding on survivability perks like Dodgy, Evasive, and Serendipity. Moving on to the fully fledged out version of the low health human outside of power armor and no VATS. Here's the special setup on screen. And here are those perks for you guys. So I added a couple of things in here, kind of similar to the full health version, except again you have perks like Nerd Rage, Serendipity, Evasive, Dodgy, etc, etc. These all just help with survivability. Now Blocker is something I highly recommend putting on because Blocker will pretty much negate all those one shots that you would typically get from being a low health player. I'm talking about like around 19% health from things like Mutant Hounds or any melee based attack. They'll usually just one-shot you, while things like, you know, getting a shot off a machine gun or something, you can survive for a fairly long time. And taking a look once again at legendary perks, so you can kind of see a theme here. If you're not using VATS, you can really free up one of your legendary perk cards. Now that we've covered all of that, I think it's time to talk about the VATS version of the low health heavy gunner, outside of power armor of course. Here is the special setup for the bare minimum low health heavy gunner VATS playstyle. And as you can see, you have 7 points left over to kind of do whatever you want with. And these are where I spent those points I actually did use. So again, you see blocker on there because, I mean, I feel like it should be on any low health build. It's just that good. Scattershot, Tormentor, Easy Target are usually things you want on there. But if we're going bare minimum here, you don't technically need Easy Target. Nerd Rage, Dodgy, Evasive, Serendipity, again, those are all standard that you saw on the other low health builds. But I guess the key difference here is you are again using Grim Reapers, better criticals, and critical savvy, because again, this is a VATS focused playstyle. And showing the special stats for the fully fledged out recommendations for a low health heavy gunner using VATS. And here is that build for you guys. So very similar again. I know all these builds appear similar. I mean, kind of because they are. But this is what you kind of can expect if you're going to be using a low health heavy gunner build. Really just got to throw on some form of AP regen, some form of AP sustain, and then survivability cards. Those are like the big ones you want to hit. As well as things like awareness for your accuracy and concentrated fire, again to help with your accuracy inside of VATS. Other perks you can put on there like Radical to help you with your carry weight. And here are the legendary perk cards, the standard ones you can expect on really any build on this channel. Now moving on to everyone's favorite, the ghoulies out there. The ghouls are out for summer and they are ready to rock and roll with their heavy weapons. So let's go ahead and check out these ghoul builds I have prepared for you guys. Here is the special stats for the bare minimum low level, I guess you could say, build for ghoul players. This is what you're going to be looking at. And here are the perk cards for you guys. So I guess some of the ones that are big standouts here, I mean, again, you're seeing Center Masochist. It's just, you know, a good perk to be using if you're not using VATS. I threw on Glowing Gut to help to keep my glow meter up at all times. Science Monster, this is just basically like another version of the legendary perk card, taking one for the team, so of course you're going to want to have this on your build. Gorilla's there just to help us with more overall damage. I mean, if you're using a heavy gun outside of VATS, chances are you're probably going to be fairly close to your enemy, probably within range for Gorilla to actually work. And Faulty Spots, while yes, this is not a VATS focused build, or this one is not anyway, you still will be aiming for weak points whenever you can, so any little bit of extra damage is always welcome. Now moving on to the fully fledged out build for ghouls using heavy guns outside of VATS. This is your special layout. And this is what the build looks like, or at least mine does anyway. So you just went ahead, you threw on Brick Wall because if you're getting staggered, you're doing less damage because you're not being able to do damage while you're staggered, right? You're going to go ahead and throw on Glowing Gut ×3. This will help you keep your glow up even easier. I threw on Science Monster. Again, you want this here just because it increases your damage if you're getting hit. And if you're not sneaking around and you're just going, you know, guns blazing like you would with a heavy gun build, you're going to get shot. Which is also why Adamantium Skeleton is here to help reduce your limbs from breaking. I threw on Gun Tricks and Quick Hands plus Wild West Hands because I just thought, you know, it'd be interesting to build into this if you are using a heavy gun outside of VATS, because if you can reduce the amount of times you have to reload, I think that's better for everyone involved. And a quick clip of me showing you guys exactly the power of these perks altogether. This is me shooting an LMG at my camp wall, and you can see this thing reloaded itself like 4 times in a row. Yeah, it's pretty good. And here are the legendary perk cards. Now moving on to the final section of this video, or the final builds per se, I will be showing you guys my VATS builds for a Ghoul heavy gun player. Here are the special stats for the bare minimum VATS Ghoul. And here are those perk cards for you guys. Again, you're going to see the typical better criticals, critical savvy. Those are just staples on any VATS build. Like, just, you know, they're always going to be there. You kind of need them. I went ahead and threw on Action Boy 1 and Packing Light 1 just to help with the AP regen. And I went ahead and threw on Glowing Criticals. This is a perk that you're going to want, especially for a VATS build that's a Ghoul player. This is a Ghoul specific perk that just increases your amount of damage in VATS dramatically. So it's something that is going to be a staple in really any Ghoul player's builds that is anything around VATS. It doesn't matter if it's heavy guns or commandos or bows. It is just that good of a perk, especially in combination with faulty spots. And showing the special stats for my finalized Ghoul heavy gunner build inside of VATS. Here is that finalized build. So just building off of what I had beforehand, you have your glowing criticals, of course, your faulty spots, critical savvy, better criticals and luck. I built into a Furious playstyle because Furious is really just the best legendary effect in the game. I'm not going to pretend it's not. Aside from that, you want to throw on something like Awareness to help you with your accuracy inside of VATS. Lock and Load will help you keep some of your stacks of Bulletstorm, and Tightly Wound. You've seen it on a couple of the builds so far. Just helps with your everyday gameplay. Just makes your build feel smoother. And here are those legendary perk cards. Again, they're the ones that you would expect to see. Now, moving on to power armor. I don't have a specific power armor build in mind, and this is because really all these builds can be used inside of power armor or outside of power armor, aside from a few perks like Serendipity, Evasive, or Hyper Reflexes. These are perks that specifically do not work inside of power armor, but aside from that, you can throw on, again, something like Power User. This will help your fusion cores last longer inside of VATS, because power armor, and when you're using VATS and power armor, it will drain your fusion cores very quickly. This is why the Vulcan power armor set is so good for VATS builds, is because it drains them slower just by its base bonus from the set bonus. And if you throw on Power User on top of this, it's just going to increase that even more, giving you more longevity on your power cores, which is more important for players who really don't have too many of them, and these things can be kind of expensive to craft. Now, aside from that, again, you could really throw on power armor in any of these builds and it'll function just fine. So just find the build you like the most, and then if you want to be inside of power armor, you can either just take off the perks I mentioned and replace them with other ones, move around your points a little bit, or just go ahead and throw on Power User, and then you can have an easier time maintaining VATS without having to blow through all your fusion cores. Now, aside from that, that is all I had for you guys today. A pretty straightforward video. A lot of the builds in this video are kind of similar. They build off of one another. They share multiple perk cards, but that's to be expected when a lot of the perk cards in the game are just, you know, good for really any build now that they've reworked all the perk cards to not be class specific anymore. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys in this video. If I helped you guys out in any way, feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.